Welcome back. So let's talk about object-oriented principles in Python. So let me create new Python file. Oops, demo. Okay. So what are classes? I hope you are familiar with classes and what does they do if you have basics of any other programming languages. But still, I will give you overview of what they are. Basically, classes are nothing but user defined blueprint or prototype. So now for example, you want to develop a calculator application. So you have to define one prototype, like what are different operations that calculator should provide. One is sum, multiplication, addition, okay, and you need to give some constant values, right? So there are different operations you need to perform if you want to develop a calculator application. So you have a class called calculator and you define what all operations you need as part of that building, and that's nothing but one class. So if you create a class called calculator, you will have a methods called sum, multiplication, addition. So that tomorrow this looks like a blueprint and anyone can use that calculator functionalities by utilizing that classes. Okay, you are just providing them a prototype of how calculator looks like by providing all the operations inside that class. So basically a class will have methods, variables, or you can say class variables, instance variables, constructor. All these are different terminologies we will hear when you say classes. Okay, so now let's try to understand how classes can have all these different methods what you are seeing here and why they are required. Okay, so let's quickly see how to declare classes in Python. So let me remove all these descriptions so that you can clearly start from the beginning. And as usual, the keyword class needs to be used if you want to create any class in Python language. So let's say calculator. So this is your class name. And in general, in other programming languages, you use like this, and you know that in Python, you cannot use this. For first flower braces, you will start with colon, and to say the class ended, you should follow again same code indentation. You just hit enter. That will take you to the exact point from where you have to start writing your code. And if you are lost and if you are in the beginning, then say tab so that it will move to the exact place. Now, so in class you can actually have variables and methods. These are two commonly used. Let's say I will create one variable which is num 100. So value of that num variable is 100. Okay. Next, hit an enter, give two spaces, 2 lines gap, so that this PyCharm editor will not complain again for coding standards. Right, now to declare method in class, you need to follow the same syntax of what you followed for functions. Basically these functions when used in class are called as a methods. Okay, there is no such difference between functions and methods. If you use functions without wrapping in classes and if you use them independently, then these are treated as functions. But when you bring this complete methodology inside the class, then we call them as a methods. But there is no difference, and the same syntax what you have used for functions can be used here to create methods in classes. So the first method what I want to create here is just a get data. So I will randomly creating one method name which doesn't make any sense for now. We will slowly develop this. So when I create, automatically get data, and when you give the first brackets, you will see like this. Syntax is auto completed. So what is this self? For now, just don't worry about this self keyword. So within very soon I am going to explain the usage of it. Right. So I will say print. You can type anything here, that I am now executing as a method in class, something like that. Right. That's all. So as I said, class will have variables and methods, and you can also say them as attributes or properties. Different languages have different terminologies to call, but in general you can say as a variable and the method. Right. So now to call this get data method, if it is already present in the class, you cannot simply call this inside the class. You should come out of this class completely. Okay. So right now, if you whatever lines you write it from here, that will be part of this method only, right? So firstly come out of that, and now you are here. That means you are under the class. You see that we started it here, right? To call these methods, as I said, you need to create object for this class. To create object, you have to completely come out of the class. So you should not be inside the class. So come to the beginning. When you come to the beginning, this will be automatically treated as that you are no more in the class now. Okay. So whatever you declare it here now will be the outside of the class. But when you do one tab and write it here, then whatever you are writing will be inside the class. And if you do another tab, then whatever you are writing will be inside this method. Okay. So remember all these code indentations, because there is no closing bracket in Python. So backspace, backspace. Come to the beginning. Right. So now we are outside of the class. And if you want to create object of any class in Python, it's just like how you call the function. The same syntax should be used to create object. Okay. So calculator, that's it. There is no new operator. I know that most of you guys are familiar with Java, JavaScript, C, C Sharp, where you see new operator if you want to create object for any class. But whereas in Python, you don't have any new operator. You just need to call that class name with brackets. That's all. So once you create object, you have to throw that into one variable, right? Object creation, obj. So basically this is your object. Okay. So now to call the method present in the class, you simply need to give obj dot, and you see that get data. So now when you execute, it will print. Now if you want to call this variable using this object, then you can say obj dot variable. It's very simple. With object dot, you can either call methods or you can either call variables in the class with an object. And this is the syntax to create objects in Python. It's so simple than Java. New operator is not required. That's it. Alright. Let me print it, because there is no point in just calling that. We have to see in the output. Alright, save the project, Control Shift F10, I am running it, and you see that I am now executing as method in class, which is the get data method output, and next 100 is printed. Right, so now what is this self keyword? We'll see that in our next lecture. Thank you.